The great hall of Aurelia's royal palace sparkled with golden light. Tall crystal windows allowed the evening sun to pour in, filling the chamber with a warm glow. The air smelled of sweet flowers and burning incense. Soft music played from a group of musicians in the corner, and nobles in shimmering robes spoke in quiet, polite voices. It was the Day of Stars, an important celebration in the kingdom. Once every year, the queen invited leaders, scholars, and heroes from across the planet to honor the peace and prosperity of Aurelia. The event was not only a celebration, it was also a place where important decisions and alliances were made. Queen Solara sat on her high throne, dressed in robes of silver and blue. Her crown, shaped like the wings of a sky bird, reflected light, with every small movement of her head. She was known throughout the lands for her wisdom, calm voice, and strong will. Beside her, on a smaller but equally beautiful seat, sat her only daughter, Princess Lyra. The princess was young, with bright eyes and a warm smile. She had inherited her mother's kindness, but she also had a restless heart, always curious, always looking beyond the horizon. The queen listened patiently as an elder noble spoke about trade agreements with the southern provinces. Everything seemed calm and predictable until the queen's gaze shifted toward the entrance of the hall. There, walking alongside Princess Lyra, was someone unusual. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed not in flowing robes like the other guests, but in a dark, practical jacket with strange patches sewn on the sleeves. His hair was short, his skin a lighter tone than any Aurelian's, and his eyes were sharp yet warm. His boots made a faint sound against the polished floor, unlike the silent steps of the palace's soft shoes. The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. She had seen many alien visitors in her life, traders, diplomats, even warriors, but she had never seen this species before. His movements were confident but respectful, and he seemed to be scanning the hall as though memorizing every detail. The musicians faltered for a moment, surprised by the stranger, but quickly continued playing. The queen leaned slightly toward her daughter, and in a voice low but clear enough for the nearest guests to hear, she asked, "Who's that?" The princess didn't hesitate. Her smile grew wider, and she looked at her mother with shining eyes. "The human I married." For a moment, the hall fell silent. The music stopped again, and all conversation froze. Every noble, servant, and guard turned to look at the stranger. Ripple of whispers spread across the room. Married? To a human? Without the queen's blessing? The queen's fingers tightened slightly around the armrest of her throne. She could feel dozens of eyes watching her reaction. As ruler of Aurelia, she was expected to remain calm, no matter the surprise, and yet inside her thoughts were spinning. She rose from her seat with slow, measured grace. "Come forward," she said. Princess Lyra led the man to stand before the throne. He bowed slightly, not in the traditional Aurelian way, but in a gesture of respect from his own people. "My name is Aaron Holt," he said in a steady voice, "captain of the Star Voyager. I am honored to stand before you, Your Majesty." The queen studied him. "A captain? From which world?" "Earth," he replied, "a small blue planet far from here. I met your daughter during unusual circumstances." The queen glanced at Lyra. "Unusual circumstances?" Lyra's eyes softened as memories filled her mind. "Mother, months ago, when I was traveling to the outer research stations, our vessel was caught in a space storm. We lost control, the ship's systems failed, and we were drifting toward a gravity well." She paused, her voice tightening. "We would have been lost if Aaron hadn't appeared." Flashback. The rescue, the storm had been a chaos of light and sound. Electric clouds of charged particles struck the hull like hammers. Navigation screens flickered and died. Crew members scrambled to restore power, but nothing worked. Through the swirling chaos outside, a small ship had appeared, weaving between violent bursts of lightning-like energy. Over the radio came a strange but clear voice. "This is Captain Aaron Holt of the Star Voyager. Hold position. I'm coming to dock." The Aurelian crew exchanged uncertain glances. They had never heard of this species before, but within minutes, the smaller ship had attached itself to theirs, and a tall figure in a sealed suit entered through the airlock. Aaron moved quickly, speaking in short, confident sentences. He rewired failing circuits, bypassed damaged controls, and used emergency power from his own vessel to restart the main engines. Lyra had watched him work with both fascination and disbelief. He was unlike anyone she had met, focused, resourceful, and strangely calm in the face of danger. When the storm cleared, their ship was able to limp toward the nearest safe port, guided by Aaron's charts. Back in the present, Lyra continued her story. After that, Aaron helped us reach home. But before we parted, I invited him to join me on a diplomatic mission to the outer moons. I wanted to learn more about him and his people. Aaron spoke up. "We faced more than one challenge together. A hostile faction attacked one of the moons we visited. The princess refused to leave until she ensured the safety of its people. I did what I could to help her protect them." The queen's eyes softened only slightly. She could imagine her daughter's stubborn bravery. Lyra had always been like that, but she also knew her court would not easily accept a human in the royal family. "You married without telling me," the queen said at last. Her voice was calm, but a hint of steel lay beneath the words. "I did," Lyra admitted, "because I knew the court would not understand. But I also knew Aaron is the one I want by my side." The queen did not reply immediately. She looked out across the hall. The nobles were watching closely, their expressions a mix of curiosity, disapproval, and intrigue. She needed time to think. But in the meantime, she could at least learn more about this human who had captured her daughter's heart. A tense meal. That evening, a private dinner was arranged in the queen's chamber. The long table was set with golden dishes and fine crystal glasses. Servants brought in trays of roasted skyfish, steamed moon fruit, and sweet nectar wine. Aaron sat beside Lyra, across from the queen. He examined the dishes politely before tasting them, clearly unfamiliar with some of the alien foods. The queen asked questions about Earth, about human customs, about his travels. Aaron answered honestly, speaking of oceans, forests, and cities that stretched toward the clouds. He described spaceports filled with ships from many worlds and the thrill of exploring unknown places. Yet the queen noticed something else in his answers, a deep respect for life and for those he had met along the way. At one point, Lyra leaned forward. "Mother, Aaron once rescued an entire crew of miners trapped on an asteroid when their oxygen supply failed. He risked his life to get to them." Aaron shook his head. "Anyone would have done the same." "Not anyone," Lyra replied softly. The queen listened, but her mind was still cautious. Courage and kindness were admirable, but marriage into the royal family was about more than personal feelings. It was about the stability of the kingdom. The court reacts the next morning. Word of the princess's marriage spread through the capital. Markets buzzed with gossip. In the palace gardens, servants whispered as they worked. Some were curious about humans. Others warned that this could lead to unrest. A group of senior nobles requested an audience with the queen. They spoke in careful, formal tones, expressing concern about foreign influence and unfamiliar customs in the royal household. The queen dismissed them politely, but she knew their worries would not fade. Aaron, aware of the tension, kept to himself. He walked the palace grounds, studying its architecture and speaking respectfully with the guards. When a group of children in the gardens asked him about Earth, he knelt and told them stories about whales, eagles, and forests that stretched beyond the horizon. The children listened wide-eyed, their earlier shyness forgotten. From her balcony, Lyra watched and smiled. She knew the path ahead would be difficult, but she believed her mother would one day see Aaron as she did. The Queens. Thoughts late that night. Queen Solara stood by her window, gazing at the twin moons of Aurelia. She remembered the look in her daughter's eyes when she said, "The human I married." It was a look of certainty, the same look Solara herself had once worn when she had chosen her late husband, despite opposition from the council. Still, humans were unpredictable. Brave, yes. Clever, certainly. But they came from a world far away, with different ways and values. Could a human truly live as part of the royal household? Could he protect her daughter in the dangerous world of politics and alliances? She did not yet know the answer. But one thing was clear. She would find out. And so, the celebration of the Day of Stars ended, not with the usual songs and speeches, but with the quiet, unspoken knowledge that change had come to the palace. The queen did not yet fully accept the human, but neither did she send him away. For now, he would remain. And the days ahead would test whether his presence would bring harmony or trouble. The morning after the Day of Stars, the palace was no longer filled with the quiet joy of celebration. Instead, it hummed with whispers. Servants passed messages in the corridors, guards exchanged glances during their patrols, and noble visitors lingered in corners, speaking in low, worried tones. The reason was clear. The princess had married a human. To many in the capital, this was more than an unusual love story. It was a decision that could change alliances, affect trade, and even shift the balance of political power. Some citizens were curious and hopeful. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and perhaps their arrival could mean new opportunities. Others, however, feared what they did not understand. Queen Solara was aware of every murmur, every cautious word. As ruler, she could not ignore the concerns of her people, but as a mother, she could not simply reject her daughter's choice without understanding it fully. Private conversation. Late in the morning, she called Princess Lyra to her private study. The room was quiet and filled with the scent of warm tea and old books. Sunlight spilled across the polished floor, making the golden patterns on the walls glow softly. "Sit, my daughter," the queen said. Lyra obeyed, folding her hands in her lap. She had expected this conversation. "Lyra," the queen began gently, "you have always been strong-willed, and I respect that, but you married without my knowledge. Do you understand the weight of such a decision?" "Yes, mother," Lyra replied. Her voice was calm, but there was determination in her eyes. "I understand more than you think. I knew the court would not approve, and I knew you would worry. But Aaron is not just any man. He has saved lives, mine included. He is brave, clever, and kind. I trust him completely." The queen studied her daughter's face, looking for any sign of uncertainty. She found none. "Love and trust are precious," the queen said slowly, "but they are not always enough in a royal marriage. The one you marry must also serve the kingdom's needs." Lyra nodded. "I know. That is why I believe Aaron will prove himself. Give him time." The queen did not promise, but she also did not refuse. "We shall see," a test of manners. That evening, the queen arranged for Aaron to attend a small formal gathering with senior members of the court. She wanted to observe how he behaved among her people. The room was filled with richly dressed nobles, their eyes sharp with curiosity. Platters of exotic fruits and crystal glasses of nectar wine were served by silent attendants. Aaron entered wearing a clean, simple suit in dark colors. It was not the elaborate style of Aurelia, but it was neat and respectful. He bowed slightly to the queen and greeted each noble with a polite nod. The conversation began with light topics: recent trade agreements, the upcoming harvest festival, the weather patterns of the southern provinces. Aaron listened more than he spoke, but when addressed directly, he answered with clear, thoughtful words. A noble named Lord Varian tested him with a pointed question. "Captain Holt, is it true that humans are known for impulsive decisions, acting without full knowledge of the consequences?" Aaron met his gaze calmly. "It's true that we sometimes act quickly in dangerous situations, but that's not because we ignore consequences. It's because sometimes waiting too long can be more dangerous. We act when action is needed." Some nobles exchanged glances, but a few seemed quietly impressed. When the evening ended, Aaron thanked the queen for the invitation. She gave only a small nod, but inwardly she noted that he had shown patience, respect, and restraint, qualities she valued. Old friends, new opinions. The next day, Queen Solara's trusted advisor, Lady Marin, visited her chambers. "Your Majesty," Lady Marin said, "I have known you since before Lyra was born. I have seen the kingdom through wars and peace, and I must tell you, I am uncertain about this human." The queen sighed. "You are not alone in your concerns. Humans are still a mystery to us," Lady Marin continued. "Some say they are quick to form alliances, but also quick to break them. Their cultures are many, and not all are peaceful." "That may be true," the queen admitted. "But I have also heard that they are adaptable, and that they value loyalty." Lady Marin tilted her head. "Perhaps. Still, it would be wise to test this Captain Holt before granting him any trust." The queen agreed. "I plan to do exactly that." An unexpected challenge later that week. A problem arose that gave the queen her first chance to see Aaron in action. A message arrived. From the border town of Kyreth, a sandstorm had destroyed part of the settlement's water supply system. The town's engineers could not repair it quickly, and without water the people would suffer. The queen planned to send a team of royal engineers, but Aaron overheard the discussion and stepped forward. "Your Majesty," he said, "I have experience repairing damaged systems under difficult conditions. If you allow it, I would like to go with your engineers." The queen raised an eyebrow. "This is not a simple task. The desert winds of Kyreth are dangerous, and the heat can kill the unprepared." Aaron's answer was steady. "I've worked in worse. If I can help, I should." The queen studied him for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. "Very well, go, and return safely." Journey to Kirith Aaron traveled with a small team of Irillian engineers and 2 royal guards. The journey across the desert was harsh. The air shimmered with heat, and the wind carried fine grains of sand that stung the skin. But Aaron moved with quiet focus, asking questions about the broken water system and studying the engineers' plans. When they reached Kirith, they found the main pipeline buried under collapsed sand and rock. The local workers were already exhausted from digging. Aaron studied the site, then suggested a different approach. "Instead of digging straight down, we can dig at an angle and brace the walls with metal panels to stop the sand from falling back in. That will keep the tunnel stable long enough to reach the pipe." The engineers were skeptical at first, but Aaron worked alongside them, showing how to set the panels in place. The work was hard, but slowly they reached the broken section of pipe. Using tools from his own kit, Aaron helped seal the damaged area and redirect water flow to a secondary tank. By nightfall, water was once again flowing into the town. The townspeople gathered to thank the team. One elder placed a hand on Aaron's shoulder. "You have saved us much suffering. May the stars guide you." Aaron only smiled and said, "I was glad to help." A report to the queen. When the team returned to the capital, the queen met them in the throne room. The engineers spoke of Aaron's leadership and problem-solving. Even the guards admitted they were impressed. Lyra beamed with pride as Aaron gave a simple, factual report of the repairs. The Queen listened carefully. Though she did not say it aloud, she was beginning to see a pattern. Aaron did not boast about his actions. He simply did what needed to be done. Whispers. Continued despite the success at Kyrith, not everyone was convinced. Lord Varian and a few other nobles began to meet in private, discussing ways to push Aaron out of the palace. "He is gaining the Queen's favor," Lord Varian said. "If we allow this to continue, he will have influence over our politics." Another noble frowned. "But the people are starting to like him. Even the children in the palace talk about him." Lord Varian's eyes narrowed. "Then we must find a way to reveal his weaknesses." A quiet evening. That night, Lyra and Aaron walked in the palace gardens. The air was cool, and the scent of night-blooming flowers surrounded them. "You're making progress," Lyra said softly. "Mother is beginning to see you differently." Aaron gave a small smile. "It's not about making her like me. It's about showing her I'm here for you and for your people." Lyra touched his arm. "That's why she will come to trust you, because you mean it." They walked in silence for a while, the moonlight casting silver patterns on the path. Neither of them saw the shadowy figure in the distance, watching them from behind the trees. The Queen decides. The next morning, Queen Solara stood at her window, thinking about all she had seen since Aaron's arrival. He had faced suspicion, worked under harsh conditions, and earned the gratitude of her people, at least some of them. But she also knew the path ahead would not be simple. Trust was not built in a single act of kindness. It had to be proven again and again. And so she began to plan the next step, a true test, one that would show whether the human could stand not only against physical challenges, but also against the trials of leadership. By the time the sun set that day, a royal decree had been prepared. Aaron Holt would face the trial of the 7 moons. It would be a challenge no outsider had ever attempted. The trial was one of Aurelia's oldest traditions. For centuries, it had been the ultimate test of courage, skill, and honor. It was not meant for entertainment. It was a way to prove that one could serve the kingdom with strength and wisdom. The challenges were drawn from the history and legends of Aurelia, each one named after one of the planet's 7 moons. No outsider had ever attempted the trial before. Some people were excited, curious to see how a human would fare. Others whispered that the Queen had chosen this path to make Aaron fail without directly rejecting him. Whatever the reason, the eyes of the kingdom were on him. The Queen's warning on, the morning before the trial, the Queen summoned Aaron to her private chamber. The room was quiet, the air carrying the faint scent of herbs. She stood by the window, her silver-blue robe flowing gently as she turned to face him. "You understand what this trial means?" she asked. Aaron nodded. "I understand it's a test. It is more than a test," the Queen said. "Each challenge will push you to your limits. It will not only test your strength, but also your judgment, patience, and honor. If you fail, it will not only be your failure, it will reflect on Lyra and on the trust I have shown by allowing you to stand here." Aaron met her gaze steadily. "I know, but I'm not here to run away from challenges." The Queen's expression did not soften, but there was a flicker of something in her eyes. Perhaps respect, perhaps doubt. "Very well. Tomorrow you will begin." First Moon. The Beast of Ashara. The first trial took place in the great arena of Ashara, an ancient stone circle open to the sky. The stands were filled with spectators, their voices low with anticipation. In the center, Aaron stood alone. armed with only a long spear and a small shield. From the opposite gate, a heavy door rumbled open. Out stepped a beast the size of a small transport vehicle. Its hide was thick and gray, its tusks curved like sickles. The creature snorted, sending dust into the air. Aaron didn't charge blindly. He studied its movements, noting how it scraped the ground before lunging. When it charged, he sidestepped and struck at its side, not to kill, but to wound just enough to slow it. The crowd gasped as he rolled away from its tusks and used the spear to trip it over a low ridge in the arena floor. After a tense few minutes, the beast backed away, too tired and wary to attack again. Aaron lowered his weapon and stepped aside, allowing it to be led away. He had passed the first moon's trial without ending the creature's life, something the Aurelians respected deeply. Second moon, the maze of Kereth. The second challenge was mental rather than physical. Aaron was led into the maze of Kereth, a twisting labyrinth built of tall stone walls. The goal was to reach the center and retrieve a golden crest. Aurelians usually relied on their natural sense of direction to navigate the maze, but Aaron had no such advantage. Instead, he used small metal markers from his pocket, placing them at each intersection to avoid going in circles. He also counted his steps and paid attention to faint drafts of air, signs of openings ahead. After what felt like hours, he emerged into the central chamber, the golden crest in his hand. The officials watching from above nodded in approval. Third moon. The River of Shadows. For the third trial, Aaron had to cross the River of Shadows, a fast, dark current beneath a canyon. The only way across was a series of narrow, slippery stones. Halfway across, a sudden splash erupted. Sleek, finned creatures with sharp teeth circled him. The crowd held its breath. Aaron didn't panic. He crouched low for balance and waited until the creatures moved closer. Then, with quick, precise movements, he tossed a small ration pack from his belt into the water downstream. The creatures chased it, giving him the chance to leap to the remaining stones and reach the far bank. He arrived wet and tired, but unhurt. Fourth moon, the Pillars of Wind. This challenge tested agility. Aaron stood before a field of tall stone pillars rising from a deep chasm. Strong gusts of wind howled through the gaps, threatening to knock anyone into the depths. Aurelians often relied on their light frames to leap quickly between pillars, but Aaron's human build was heavier. He adjusted by crouching low during gusts, timing his jumps only during the brief lulls in the wind. It took longer than usual, but step by step, he reached the other side. Fifth moon. The test of truth. This was not a challenge of the body, but of the heart. Aaron was brought into a dimly lit chamber where 3 elders sat in a semicircle. They asked him questions about his life, his intentions toward Lyra, and his loyalty to Aurelia. One elder asked sharply, "If Earth called you back and demanded you leave Aurelia forever, would you obey?" Aaron took a long breath. "I can't know the future, but I do know this. Lyra is my family now. My loyalty is to her first. Wherever she is, that's where I belong." The elders exchanged glances, then made a small mark on their tablets. The trial continued. Sixth moon. The wall of endurance Aaron faced a tall, smooth wall of stone, higher than any building in the palace. The challenge was to climb it using only the handholds carved into its surface. Aurelians trained for years to master this climb. Aaron approached it calmly, testing each hold before trusting it with his weight. His hands and arms burned with effort, but he moved steadily, using his legs to push upward instead of relying only on his arms. When he finally pulled himself over the top, the crowd cheered, not for speed, but for determination. Seventh moon, the circle of choice. The final challenge was the most unusual. Aaron entered a circular arena with 2 exits. In the center stood a small cage containing a rare bird, its feathers bright as jewels. A voice from above announced, "One exit leads to victory, the other to failure. The bird knows the way." The rules were simple. He could free the bird and follow it, or choose on his own. Aaron crouched by the cage, watching the bird. He noticed that it was frightened by noise but calmed when he stayed still. He slowly opened the cage and stepped back. The bird hesitated, then fluttered toward the left exit. Aaron followed. The gate opened into the sunlight of the main arena. Trumpets sounded. The trial was over. He had passed all 7 moons, the Queen's decision. That evening, the Queen met Aaron in the Hall of Stars. She stood at the center, the moonlight shining through the tall windows. "You have completed the trial," she said. "No outsider has ever done so." Aaron bowed slightly. "I didn't come here to prove I'm better than your people. I came to show that I'm willing to stand with them." The Queen studied him for a long moment. "You have earned a measure of respect, but respect is not the same as trust. That must still be built." Aaron nodded. "I understand." Lyra's pride. When Aaron returned to his quarters, Lyra was waiting. She ran to him, her smile brighter than he had ever seen. "You did it," she said. "All 7 moons." He smiled faintly. "I'm just glad it's over." She shook her head. "No, it's only beginning. Now the court has seen what you can do. Some will still doubt you, but others, they'll start to believe." In the shadows far from the celebrations, Lord Varian stood with a small group of nobles in a quiet chamber. "He passed the trial," one muttered. Varian's eyes narrowed. "Yes, which means we will need another way to remove him. Something even the Queen cannot ignore: the calm." Before the storm, for now, the palace returned to its usual rhythm. But beneath the calm surface, tension remained. The Queen had seen Aaron's strength and skill, yet her trust was not complete. Lyra stood proudly beside her husband, unaware that enemies were already moving against them. And somewhere beyond the borders of Aurelia, a greater danger was beginning to rise, one that would test not just Aaron's worth, but the future of the entire kingdom. The royal palace felt different now. The white stone walls still glimmered under the morning sun, the blue banners still fluttered in the wind, and the guards still stood at attention. But something in the air had changed. It was heavier, as if the very stones were holding their breath. Daniel walked beside Princess Leora down the long hallway that led to the throne room. He could hear the quiet steps of the guards behind them, their boots tapping against the polished floor. The great doors ahead were carved with the history of the kingdom, heroes, battles, and the victories of past rulers. He had been summoned for an audience with the Queen, not as a prisoner, not as a guest, but as someone whose presence was now officially part of the royal court. That fact still surprised him. Leora glanced at him, her voice low. "You must speak carefully today. My mother, she is not easily convinced." Daniel nodded. "I'll be respectful." The doors opened with a deep groan, and the throne room revealed itself. The ceiling stretched high above, painted with scenes of the stars and moons of this world. The throne itself was carved from crystal-like stone, glowing faintly with light from within. The Queen sat upon it, wearing a silver crown that caught every beam of light. Her gown was a flowing river of deep violet. Her eyes were sharp, studying Daniel as he approached. Daniel bowed. "Your Majesty." The Queen's voice was calm but carried strength. "Rise, human." He stood, keeping his eyes lowered in respect. "You have been in my palace for some time," she said. "You have eaten our food, walked our halls, and spoken to my daughter. Now, I hear you claim a bond with her. Is this true?" Daniel hesitated only a moment. "Yes, Your Majesty." The Queen's gaze flicked toward Leora, then back to Daniel. And why? What does a man from another world seek in the heart of a princess of my people? Daniel chose his words carefully. I came here by accident, but when I met Leora, I saw more than just royalty. I saw someone brave, kind, and willing to stand for what she believes in. I did not seek her crown. I was drawn to her spirit. The Queen's expression did not soften. And what do you offer her? Can a man of flesh and bone from a world of machines give her what she needs to rule beside her? Daniel took a slow breath. I can offer loyalty, strength, and the will to protect her and her people. I do not know your customs as you do, but I can learn. And I can fight for this kingdom if needed. The Queen leaned back, studying him as if she could see every hidden thought. Before she could speak again, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the hall. A messenger in gold-trimmed armor rushed forward, bowing quickly. Your Majesty, urgent news from the eastern border. The Queen gestured for him to speak. The enemy ships, they have crossed the line. They will be here in days. The room grew tense. The Queen's hand tightened on the arm of her throne. Which enemy? The messenger's face paled. The Dravari fleets. A murmur spread through the court. The Dravari, fierce warriors from a distant star, were known for their brutality. They had raided worlds before, leaving nothing but smoke and silence behind. Daniel stepped forward. I've fought the Dravari before, on another colony world. If they're coming here, you'll need more than walls and shields. Several nobles turned to glare at him for speaking without permission, but the Queen raised a hand to silence them. Explain, Daniel met her eyes. The Dravari fight with speed and numbers. They will strike from above and below, using smaller ships to bypass your defenses. If you focus only on your main gates, they'll already be inside your cities before you know it. The Queen considered his words. And you know how to stop this? I know how to slow them down. Long enough for your people to prepare? Leora stepped forward. Mother, let him help. His knowledge could save lives. The Queen looked between them, her eyes narrowing slightly. Very well. Human, you will prove your worth. You will ride with my scouts at dawn and see the enemy's movements for yourself. If you return with useful knowledge, we will speak again of this bond you claim. Daniel bowed. I understand, Your Majesty. The next morning, the sky was pale with the first light of dawn. Daniel stood in the courtyard, armored in a mix of palace guard gear and his own salvaged equipment from his crashed ship. Leora approached him, her cloak drawn against the cold wind. You'll need this, she said, handing him a small device. It's a translator and recorder. Whatever you see out there, log it. My mother will want exact details. Daniel smiled faintly. Thanks. I'll be back. Her voice softened. You'd better be. The scouts gathered. 6 riders on sleek antlered beasts that could run faster than any earth horse. Daniel mounted one, the saddle strange but functional. The leader of the scouts, a tall alien with silver markings on his face, gave a sharp signal, and they were off. The landscape blurred as they rode east. They crossed rolling hills, then entered the dry plains where the horizon seemed endless. Hours passed before they saw the first sign of the Dravari, smoke rising in the far distance. The scout leader raised his hand and they slowed. Through his visor, Daniel zoomed in on the smoke. Dark shapes moved across the sky. Dravari scout ships, triangular and armed with energy cannons. Below them, ground forces moved like shadows, fast and coordinated. Daniel pressed the recorder. They're setting up forward positions. We have 2 days at most before they push further in. The scout leader frowned. 2 days! That is sooner than we hoped. A sudden whine of engines filled the air. Daniel's instincts screamed. Down! A Dravari ship swooped low, cannons firing. The ground erupted with heat and dust. The riders scattered, their mounts leaping away from the blasts. Daniel rolled behind a rock outcrop, pulling his rifle from its sling. The ship circled back. Daniel aimed carefully and fired at one of the engines. Sparks erupted, and the ship veered wildly before crashing into the ground a short distance away. The scouts stared in shock. One of them muttered, "Humans fight like no one I've seen." Daniel didn't waste time. "We need to move. They'll send more." They returned to the palace by nightfall, exhausted and covered in dust. Daniel stood before the queen again, this time with the scout leader by his side. The leader bowed. "Your Majesty, the human speaks truth. The Dravari will strike in 2 days. Without his warning, we would have been unprepared." The queen's gaze was unreadable. She looked at Daniel for a long moment before speaking. "You have done well. But this is only the beginning. If you wish to stand beside my daughter, you must also stand between my people and their enemies. Will you?" Daniel's voice was steady. "I will." The queen nodded slowly. "Then prepare. War is coming." That night, as Daniel prepared his gear, Leora found him in the armory. Her eyes searched his face. "You keep proving yourself," she said softly. "But I worry that my mother is testing you not just for me, but for the throne itself." Daniel tightened the strap on his armor. "If that's what it takes to keep you safe, I'll pass every test she throws at me." Leora's hand brushed his briefly before she stepped back. "Then we'll face this together. When the Dravari come, they will learn what it means to fight both human and royal blood." Daniel gave a faint smile. "Then let's make sure they regret every step they take." Outside, the drums of the palace guard began to beat, a steady, grim rhythm that carried through the night air. The call to prepare for battle had begun. The palace was unusually silent. The great halls, normally filled with the sounds of busy attendants and guards, seemed to echo every footstep. Outside, the twin moons cast their silver light through the high windows, painting the polished floors in pale patterns. Inside the royal chamber, the queen sat on her throne, her expression serious yet calm. At the far end of the hall, the great doors opened slowly. Princess Leora stepped in, her dress flowing like a river of light. Beside her walked David, the human who had crossed worlds and endured endless trials for her. His posture was straight, but his eyes searched the hall carefully, knowing that every noble present was watching him. Whispers rose from the crowd. Some noblewomen tilted their heads in curiosity. Some noblemen looked at David with skepticism. No one in the history of the realm had seen a human stand beside royalty like this, not as a servant or guest, but as something far more. The queen's gaze rested on David. "So, this is the one?" she said, her voice echoing across the chamber. "Yes, mother," Leora replied without hesitation. "This is David, the human I married." Gasps filled the hall, even though rumors had already spread. Hearing it from the princess's own mouth sent ripples of shock through the nobility. Several advisors exchanged worried glances. One elder council member muttered something under his breath, but the queen silenced him with a glance. David did not bow immediately. Instead, he walked forward with steady steps until he was a respectful distance from the throne. Then he knelt on one knee. "Your Majesty," he said in a clear voice, "it is an honor to stand in your presence." The queen studied him. She could see no fear in his eyes, only respect and determination. "Rise, David," she said after a moment. "I have heard many things about you, how you defended my daughter, how you survived in the ruins of the northern wastes, how you negotiated with the sky nomads when no one else could. But words are easy to shape. Deeds are harder to measure. Tell me, why should I accept you into my family?" David took a breath, his mind calm. "Because I will protect her with my life." Not because she is a princess, but because she is Leora. I have no title, no claim to wealth or power in your world. All I have is my word, and my word is that no harm will come to her as long as I still draw breath." His voice carried across the hall, and for a moment there was silence. Then the queen leaned back slightly, her eyes narrowing, not in anger, but in thought. "You speak as if you understand the weight of your promise. But our world is not yours. Here, loyalty is tested not once, but many times. You will face storms you do not yet imagine. Are you ready for that?" "I have already faced storms," David replied. "I've faced loss, danger, and fear. I didn't come here because it was easy. I came because I couldn't turn away from her." Leora's eyes softened, pride filling her heart. She took a step closer to him, her hand brushing his lightly. The small gesture did not go unnoticed by the court. The queen's gaze shifted to her daughter. "And you, Leora, do you understand what you are asking of me? The bond you have formed is not just between you and him. It is between our worlds. The court will resist. The people may question your choice. There will be those who seek to use this against us." "I understand," Leora said firmly. "But I would rather face their doubt than live without him. I have seen what kind of person he is. He is not of our world, but his heart is true. That matters more to me than his origin." A faint smile tugged at the queen's lips. "Your words remind me of someone I once knew," she said softly, almost to herself. Then her expression became formal again. "Very well," the queen declared, her voice carrying royal authority. "I will not stand in the way of your union. But know this, David, your place here will not be protected by my favor alone. You must earn the trust of this court and the people. If you fail, even Leora's love may not shield you from the consequences." David bowed deeply. "I understand, Your Majesty." The hall erupted into murmurs again, but this time the tone was different. Some were still doubtful, but others seemed curious, even impressed. A few young nobles looked at David with open admiration. That evening, a small private celebration was held in the royal gardens. The air was scented with the blossoms of the moonflowers, which opened only under the twin moons. The soft glow of crystal lanterns lit the paths, and the sound of distant fountains filled the night. David stood beside Leora, speaking quietly with a few of her closest friends. They asked him about his home world, its mountains, seas, and skies. He described the sound of rain on rooftops, the way sunsets painted the horizon in red and gold. Some listened with fascination, imagining a place so different from their own. The queen watched from a distance, speaking with her advisors. "He carries himself well," one of them admitted. "If nothing else, he has presence." "He has more than that," the queen replied. "He has courage, and courage, unlike birthright, cannot be given. It must be earned." As the night went on, Leora and David walked together through a quiet path in the garden. "I was worried," she admitted softly. "When Mother asked you why she should accept you, I thought maybe you would falter." David smiled faintly. "I don't need to think twice about why I'm here. It's simple. I'm here because of you." Her heart warmed at his words. She rested her head against his shoulder. "The road ahead won't be easy." "Good," David replied. "Easy roads don't lead to great places." The next morning, word spread quickly through the city about the human who stood before the queen and was not turned away. Some citizens were curious, some were cautious, and some were hopeful. A few days later, David was summoned to the training grounds of the Royal Guard. The captain, a tall warrior with silver armor, stood waiting. "If you wish to stand beside the princess," the captain said, "you must prove that you can protect her, not just with words but with skill." David accepted without hesitation. The training was hard. faster, harsher, and stranger than anything he had faced before. But day after day, he improved. His human endurance, quick thinking, and refusal to give up began to earn the respect of the guards. Weeks passed. One evening, while the court dined in the grand hall, a messenger rushed in. "Raiders from the eastern dunes!" he shouted. "They've breached the border outpost!" The queen rose instantly. Orders were given, and soldiers prepared to ride. But before they could leave, another breathless messenger arrived. "They've taken hostages, among them a royal envoy." Without waiting, David stepped forward. "Let me go with the rescue party." The captain raised an eyebrow. "You think you can handle raiders?" "I don't think," David replied. "I know I can help." The queen studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Go, and bring them back." The mission was dangerous. The desert winds cut like knives, and the raiders were swift. But through clever planning and sheer determination, David and the rescue party freed the hostages without losing a single life. When they returned, the city greeted them as heroes. And for the first time, when David walked through the palace gates, the guards saluted him without hesitation. That night, as they stood together on the palace balcony, Leora looked at him with quiet pride. "You've earned their trust," she said. "Not all of them," David replied. "But that's okay. Trust isn't built in a day." The queen approached, her steps light. "You have done well," she said simply. "You may yet find your place here, not as a stranger, but as one of us." David met her gaze and nodded. "I'm not here to replace anyone or change your world. I'm here to protect what matters to me." The queen allowed herself a small smile. "Then perhaps in time, the court will understand why my daughter chose you." Under the twin moons, with the city lights stretching to the horizon, David stood beside the woman he loved. And for the first time since he had arrived in this world, he truly felt that he belonged.